The Little Minister by J. M. Barrie. Chapter 30. The Meeting for Rain. Meanwhile, the Auld Lichts were in church, waiting for the minister, and it was a full meeting, because nearly every well in Thrums had been scooped dry by anxious palms. Yet not all were there to ask God's rain for themselves. Old Charles Yule was in his pew, after dreaming thrice that he would break up with the drought. And Belle Christison had come, though her man lay dead at home, and she thought it could matter no more to her how things went in the world. You who do not love that little congregation would have said that they were waiting placidly, but probably so simple a woman as Meggy Rattray could have deceived you into believing that because her eyes were downcast she did not notice who put the 3-penny bit in the plate. A few men were unaware that the bell was working overtime. Most of them farmers with their eyes on the windows, but all the women at least were wondering. They knew better, however, than to bring their thoughts to their faces, and none sought to catch another's eye. The menfolk looked heavily at their hats in the seats in front. Even when Hendry Munn, instead of marching to the pulpit with the big Bible in his hands, came as far as the plate and signed to Peter Tosh, elder, that he was wanted in the vestry, you could not have guessed how every woman there, except Belle Christison, wished she was Peter Tosh. Peter was so taken aback that he merely gaped at Hendry, until suddenly he knew that his 5 daughters were furious with him, when he dived for his hat and staggered to the vestry with his mouth open. His boots cheeped all the way, but no one looked up. "I hadna noticed the minister was lang in coming," Waster Lunny told me afterward, "but Elspeth noticed it, and with a quickness that baffles me, she saw I was a-thinking of other things, so she let out her foot at me. I gae a low cough to let her ken I wasna sleeping, but in a minute out goes her foot again. Syne I thought I micht hae dropped my hanky into Snecky Hobart's pew, but no, it was in my tails. Yet her hand was on the board, and she was working her fingers in a way that I kent meant she would like to shake me. Next I looked to see if I was sitting on her frock, the which tries a woman sair, but I wasna. Does she want to change Bible wi' me, I wondered, or is she sliding on the peppermint to me? It was neither, so I edged as far frae her as I could gang. Weel, would you credit it? I saw her body coming nearer me inch by inch, though she was looking straucht afore her, till she was within kick o' me, and then out again goes her foot. At that, Dominie, I lost patience, and I whispered fierce like, "Keep your foot to yoursel, you limmer." Aye, her intent, you see, was to awaken me to what was going on, but I couldna be expected to ken that. In the vestry, Hendry Munn was now holding counsel with 3 elders, of whom the chief was Lang Tammas. "The laddie I've sent to the manse," Hendry said, "canna be back this 5 minutes, and the question is how we're to fill up that time. I'll ring no langer, for the bell has been in a passion ever since 8:15. It's as weird to clang past a quarter as a horse to gallop by a stable." "You could gang to your box and gie out a psalm, Tammas," suggested John Spens. "And would a psalm sung with such an object," retorted the precentor, "mount higher, think you, than a bairn's kite? I'll insult the Almighty to screen no minister." "You're screening him better by standing where you are," said the imperturbable Hendry, "for as long as you dinna show your face they'll think it may be you that's missing instead of Mr. Dishart." Indeed, Gavin's appearance in church without the precentor would have been as surprising as Tammas's without the minister. As certainly as the shutting of a money box is followed by the turning of the key, did the precentor walk stiffly from the vestry to his box, a toll of the bell in front of the minister. Tammas's halfpenny rang in the plate as Gavin passed T'nowhead's pew, and Gavin's 6pence with the snapping to of the precentor's door. The 2 men might have been connected by a string that tightened at 10 yards. "The congregation ken me ower weel," Tammas said, "to believe I would keep the Lord waiting." "And they are as sure o' Mr. Dishart," rejoined Spens with spirit, though he feared the precentor on Sabbaths and at prayer meetings. "You're a hard man." "I speak the blunt truth," Whamond answered. "Ay," said Spens, "and to tak credit for that may be like blawing that you're ower honest to wear clothes." Hendry, who had gone to the door, returned now with the information that Mr. Dishart had left the manse 2 hours ago, to pay visits, meaning to come to the prayer meeting before he returned home. "There's a quirk in this, Hendry," said Tosh. "Was it Mistress Dishart the laddie saw?" "No," Hendry replied. "It was Jean. She canna get to the meeting because the mistress is nervous in the manse by herself, and Jean dinna like to tell her that he's missing for fear o' alarming her. What are we to do now?" "He's an unfaithful shepherd," cried the precentor, while Hendry again went out. "I see it written on the walls." "I dinna," said Spens doggedly. "Because," retorted Tammas, "having eyes you see not. Tammas, I thought you was fond of Mr. Dishart." "If my right eye were to offend me," answered the precentor, "I would pluck it out. I suppose you think, and baith of you farmers too, that there's no necessity for praying for rain the nicht. You'll be content, will you, if Mr. Dishart just drops into the kirk some day accidental like and offers up a bit of a prayer?" "As for the rain," Spens said triumphantly, "I wouldna wonder, though it's here afore the minister. You cannot deny, Peter Tosh, that there's been a smell of rain in the air this 2 hours back." "John," Peter said agitatedly, "dinna speak so confidently. I've kent it," he whispered, "since the day turned, but it wants to tak us by surprise, lad, and so I'm no letting on." "See that you dinna make an idol of the rain," thundered Whamond. "Your thoughts is no with him, but with the clouds, and where your thoughts are, there will be your prayer stick also." "If you saw my lambs," Tosh began, and then, ashamed of himself, said, looking upward, "He holds the rain in the hollow of his hand." "And he's closing his neave teeked on it again," said the precentor solemnly. "Hearken to the wind rising." "God help me," cried Tosh, wringing his hands. "Is it fair, think you," he said passionately, addressing the sky, "to show your wrath with Mr. Dishart by ruining my neeps?" "You were right, Tammas Whamond," Spens said, growing hard as he listened to the wind. "The sanctuary of the Lord has been profaned this nicht by him what shall be the chief pillar of the building." They were lowering brows that greeted Hendry when he returned to say that Mr. Dishart had been seen last on the hill with the Glen Quharity dominie. "Some thinks," said the kirk officer, "that he's awa hunting for Rob Dow." "Nothing'll excuse him," replied Spens, "short of his having fallen over the quarry." Hendry's was usually a blank face, but it must have looked troubled now, for Tosh was about to say, "Hendry, you're keeping something back," when the precentor said it before him. "With that story of Mr. Dishart's murder no many hours auld yet," the kirk officer replied evasively, "we should be wary of trusting gossip." "What hae you heard?" "It's through the town," Hendry answered, "that a woman was with the dominie." "A woman!" cried Tosh. "The woman there's been sic talk about in connection with the minister? Where are they now?" "It's no kent, but the dominie was seen gaun hame by himself." "Leaving the minister and her together," cried the three men at once. "Hendry Munn," Tammas said sternly, "there's mair about this. Wha's the woman?" "They are liars," Hendry answered, and shut his mouth tight. "Gie her a name, I say," the precentor ordered, "or as chief elder of this kirk, supported by mair than half o' the session, I command you to lift your hat and go." Hendry gave an appealing look to Tosh and Spens, but the precentor's solemnity had cowed them. "They say then," he answered sullenly, "that it's the Egyptian. Yes, and I believe they ken." Two farmers drew back from the statement incredulously, but Tammas Whamond jumped at the kirk officer's throat, and some who were in the church that night say they heard Hendry scream. Then the precentor's fingers relaxed their grip, and he tottered into the middle of the room. "Hendry," he pleaded, holding out his arms pathetically, "tak back these words. Oh, man, have pity and tak 'em back." But Hendry would not, and then Lang Tammas's mouth worked convulsively, and he sobbed, crying, "Nobody kent it, but mair than mortal son, oh God, I did love the lad." So seldom in a lifetime had anyone seen into this man's heart that Spens said, amazed, Thomas Whamond, it's no like you to break down." The rusty door of Whamond's heart swung to. "Who broke down?" he asked fiercely. Let no member of this session dare to break down till his work be done. What work? Tosh said uneasily. We cannot interfere. I would rather resign, Spence said, but shook when Whamond hurled these words at him. And Jesus said unto him, No man having put his hand to the plough and looking back is fit for the kingdom of God. It may not be true, Hendry said eagerly. We'll soon see. He would gie her up, said Tosh. Peter Tosh, answered Whamond sternly, I call upon you to dismiss the congregation. Should we no rather haud the meeting ourselves? We have other work afore us, replied the precentor. But what can I say? Tosh asked nervously. Should I offer up a prayer? I warn you all, broke in Hendry, that though the congregation is sitting there quietly, there'll be tigers for the meaning of this as soon as they're in the street. Let no untruth be told them, said the precentor. Peter Tosh, do your duty. John Spence, remain with me. The church emptied silently, but a buzz of excitement arose outside. Many persons tried to enter the vestry, but were ordered away. And when Tosh joined his fellow elders, the people were collecting in animated groups in the square, or scattering through the wynds for news. And now, said the precentor, I call upon the three of you to come with me. Hendry Munn, you'll gang first. I maun bide a hint, Hendry said with a sudden fear, to lock up the kirk. I'll lock up the kirk, Whamond answered harshly. You maun gie me the keys, though, entreated the kirk officer. I'll take care of the keys, said Whamond. I maun hie them, Hendry said, to open the kirk on Sabbath. The precentor locked the doors and buttoned up the keys in his trouser pocket. What kens, he said in a voice of steel, that the kirk'll be open next Sabbath? Hae some mercy on him, Thomas, Spence implored. He's no 22. What kens, continued the precentor, but that the next time this kirk is open will be to preach it to him. What road do we tak? The road to the hill where he was seen last. End of chapter 30.